Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I want to talk to you about power creep. I want to talk to you about the new Chaos Legion cards and their abilities. I think clearly we've seen a big step up in terms of amazing new abilities that are going to be game changing. The question is, are they going to be game breaking? I think we saw some indication from the developers that they think they can go too far, as we saw with the nerf to Tarsa and to Ifrit Rising as two quick examples. But the question is, are there other examples that they haven't noticed and that might be a real problem? I want to talk about stuff like that, including not just on those two monsters or summoners, but actually on the broader topic of some of the new abilities. We're going to look at things like Force Field. We're going to look at Phase even. We'll look at Giant Killer and Recharge. Okay? So let's get into that today. If that sounds interesting, make sure you like and subscribe. My name is Dwayne. I go by Infidel1258, sometimes just 1258. And we cover Splinterlands on the channel all day, every day, because it's changed my life. So if that sounds interesting, make sure you stick around. So, I mean, clearly, like I said, clearly the developers who nerfed Tarsa felt that they can go too far. My concern is that there are still some examples of maybe going too far. And I want to show you a few and, you know, just raise my concerns and let you guys hear them and then provide feedback to me. Maybe I'm overreacting on certain items here, but let's get into it. So, I mean, first of all, Tarsa. She was once one melee, one speed. I do believe that I understand why they've done two abilities with Tarsa for 4 mana, because one ability costs 3 and 3 abilities cost 5. Look at Plato Emberstone Storm, I think. But I just feel like if it was +1 melee and +1 speed, I would never play Pyre again. And the thing about that is Pyre is supposed to be coming with me into the new Modern League. So if I had Tarsa and Pyre is completely obsolete. To me, that's an example of power creep and how you just essentially erase the utility of prior monsters. The great thing about this game is that the developers did understand that this would be a concern, and so they wrote into the cards themselves the idea that there would be collection power associated with it, and the older cards are going to have higher collection power. Higher collection power is going to allow you to unlock higher and higher rank leagues, and so that alone is always going to be there for some of the betas and the alphas, and even some of the more, you know, promos or reward cards. So there will always be utility there, which is amazing. That was brilliant to have done that. But the lingering question is whether they'll be really playable, whether they'll be the meta will be so redefined by new abilities that older cards just end up not being used. And that would be a real shame, unless you know, they'll find utility maybe on farming land or something. But if they just get literally put out to pasture, that would be a shame. Those cards are amazing. Having said all of that, they corrected the issue with Tarsa. They changed it to be 1 attack and 1 heart. So now it has totally different vibe than Pyre. And so Pyre absolutely has a place, and Tarsa has a different place. Now, unfortunately, if we go over to water, you know, you've got the +1 speed. So I feel like Kelia Frendel is a pretty hard counter to Pyre now. I feel like Pyre is just, because of this summoner, and this is a different example of power creep. I feel like this summoner answers Pyre so precisely that, you know, good luck. Especially with some of them, you know, if you're running a more wild deck, like a more untamed and older, as opposed to a Chaos Legion light deck, you're going to be in trouble coming up against decks that are holding some of this power. At first, I was really bearish on Frendel, but then they nerfed the armor, making it 1 armor and 1 speed. And as you guys know, I feel strongly that this is a huge improvement. So the summoners are one thing, but here's the thing. The summoner, if it's just one summoner that ends up being overpowered, or that ends up being meta redefining, or even if each splinter has a new meta redefining summoner, that's just what, 5 or 6 cards. So that's kind of not a big deal. But the problem gets bigger when each deck has monsters that end up being meta redefining also. And remember, these monsters aren't just going to be functional in the modern format. They're going to be playable in the wild format also. So that's going to, does that then mean that these cards are must own, even for those people like me who want to have a presence in the wild format? I think maybe the answer is yes. Let's look at some of these monsters and these abilities. Let's go back to fire first. So I mean, clearly Ifrit Rising was so powerful they nerfed him, right? At max level, he had 4 magic. Now he's been nerfed to 3. This was a big improvement, but honestly, I'm not convinced it's enough. I'm just thinking that this recharge ability is too powerful. And, you know, maybe I'm jumping the gun. I've seen testnet battles. I haven't played them myself at all, but I've seen testnet battles. And it seems to me that even though he's attacking every other turn, every other round, but does 3 times the damage. I mean, 2 times the damage makes more sense in that context, doesn't it? I don't know, man. This one concerns me. Because here's the thing. Burn him down, and you say, oh, just burn him down in the first round. How are you going to burn this guy down? He's got, first of all, you're probably going to position him wisely in the 3rd or 4th spot where he's not going to be vulnerable, and he's going to be allowed to survive long enough and really get maximum number of shots before he dies, right? So he's not going to be in the first row. How are you going to bring this thing down? And even if he was in the first row, at the highest levels, he's going to have force field, and force field, remember, does the takes any damage over 5 down to 1. And so increasingly, this is even perhaps more concerning to me in terms of monster abilities that are out there that are going to really dramatically change the game experience. Now, that might be okay. I'm not exactly being critical. I'm just saying these are huge changes. And I want to talk about the huge changes because I want to think it through, and I want to invite you guys to think it through so that we can come together as a community to understand what's happening, how it's changing, and, you know, whether it's in some way broken. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying this is a gigantic power and it could be overpowered. This thing's going to hit for 9 damage at highest levels, and in the right context, play with Jotun, which offers blast to all fire monsters, including this one. And then also remember when there's a rule set, go over to Splinter Cards and get it. Gameplay, rule sets, heavy hitters. If you end up hitting if the heavy hitters rule set's in play and you stun first, there's a 50%, all your monsters will deal double damage to that stunned opponent. Think that through. 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18. You're going to drop 18 knockout damage on somebody in this rule set. Then add this rule set to... Yeah, this is it. Target practice. Okay. All ranged and magic monsters have the snipe ability. So, Ifrit is going to be punching at, like I said, 9 every other round. Plus with Jotun, he's going to have blast. Plus with that rule set, he's gonna be shooting snipe. So in the second, he's gonna be attacking somebody in the 2nd or 3rd position. What's that gonna mean? He's gonna blast damage 1st, 2nd, and 3rd positions. And also in the knockout context, he might be doing double that. To me, that sounds really, really broken. So I guess you could counter it though. You could say, like, you just need, in those contexts, you must have force field. You simply must have 3 force fields. 1 in the 1st position, 1 in the 2nd position, 1 in the 3rd position. So it's not game breaking, but it sounds like it's game redefining in terms of how you play. Because now, you know, I've traditionally always applied like a 1 or a 2 tank build. This feels like it's going to open the door for the need for a 3 tank build. And metas evolve. You know, this is an important side note. Metas of every game will always evolve unless the game has no development. And so I don't begrudge that. But again, I want to talk about it. it feels to me like it's quite overpowered. Here's the good news. I have a chance to buy it. So do you. This card to me feels like it's overpowered, and it feels like a must-have. The good news is you can have it. It's gonna launch, and it's gonna be in the packs that we open, and people are gonna sell it. And if the marketplace is any indication, when I come over here and I look at, you know, these legendary monsters like Arclaw for $15 and Bilka for $15 and $32 now for Jin O'Shanis, to me these prices are ludicrous. I know there's a lot going on here. Like, people are saving their money for Chaos Legion. The crypto market just took a big dip. As a result, maybe these prices are falling because people, you know, continue to sell assets to try and accumulate resources to be prepared for Chaos Legion. I get it. But cards like this, you know what I mean? Like this is one of them. In fact, you're going to need this card with its force field at higher levels to do what I just described to you as a counter to cards such as Ifrit Rising. But that's not the only example. I mean, phase and speed. I mean, we haven't touched on Giant Killer. This one to me sounds like a massive, massive ability, but I don't put it in the same ballpark as Recharge. This one sounds really significant. It says does double damage against targets that cost 10 or more mana. Yeah, that's huge. 6 magic is gigantic. But it's not going to be necessarily, again, if you partner that with Yodin, if you use that in the right context with those rule sets we just talked about, that watch out, right? That's going to be crazy. But again, there's counters to it. Just prepare yourself. If the rule set includes target practice, make sure you're putting somebody who has force field in a position that's going to attract the attack of a card that you would anticipate, such as in Inferni. So if you position your monsters correctly in counter to an expected Jin Inferni, you're going to be fine. Again, it hasn't broken anything, but it sure has changed how you're going to need to think about your team construction and therefore your deck construction. And so it's important to have these conversations now before December 8th comes, before these packs start getting open, because if you see good opportunities to buy cards like this, you need to know now that they're not going to be okay. They're going to be meta redefining. And that's fine if you prepare wisely. And it's not just these cards. It's knowing what cards exist already out there that can really help also, such as phase. They're magic. These are 2 magic ones. What do we do? How can we counter that? You can bring force field to the table. You could bring phase to the table. You could, hopefully, if you're using phase, you're bringing lots of speed to the table. And so, I mean, I already pointed at one. He's not. Yes, Legion. O'Shanis is definitely one of them, and I would describe this as relatively cheap. This was $60 a couple of weeks ago. But to me, if you're planning to be a successful high-end team in the Modern League, or even for that matter, the Wild format, this is going to be a card you're going to regret not owning. And for $30, I think we're all going to say, wow, it was $30. This to me, like I've said it before and I'll say it again, this to me feels much more like Phantom of the Abyss around 160 than it does, Jin Bilka at 15. Like, it's currently closer to 15. It's closer to this card than it is to this card. And I think this is very much this is almost a replica. It's fast, it's evasive. Because of its evasiveness, the Phantom of the Abyss stays alive quite long. Plus, it's got a high amount of magic damage. Jin O'Shanis has sustain ability to do void and force field. This thing is like an off tank, and it's amazing and powerful. The point is, you need to start preparing your deck for the changes that are obviously coming, and the writing's on the wall as you analyze these more modern cards, these Chaos Legion cards, and these abilities. So phase is definitely one of them. You're going to need to get in there, and you're going to need to sort out your phase situation, because obviously Magic is getting very crazy, very serious. Yeah, O'Shanis having phase and force field and void, this thing is crazy, man. Like gold and higher. But there's also Ifrit Elder. There's also my favorite nightmare, Almo Cambio, which for a long time has gotten very little love, but is starting to become recognized as a very powerful summoner, or not summoner, I mean monster. I recently sold my full max copy, but I still have lower level copies of it. And I didn't sell it because I don't like it. I sold it because I need liquidation so I could afford the Chaos Legion packs. Same as many people out there. Helicore Conjurer, one of the cheapest copies of anything that's got the phase. This thing, so there's lots of ways to construct your deck in anticipation of a new meta around Magic, but I think you better start preparing. I think these are changing the game dramatically, and I think you better start preparing. Going to water now. Wave Brood to me seems like another one that's going to be absolutely redefined because of it's got everything in my opinion. Close range, void, return fire, self heal, taunt. So no matter where you put in this thing, it's going to be functional, and it's going to be that massive meat shield. To me, this thing feels like Gelatinous Cube on steroids. You know, it's like a Cornelius meets Gelatinous Cube, and I would describe this thing as a must-have. I don't really see any two ways about it. This is only an epic card. This is not even a legendary monster. And it happens to be less than 10 also, which again gives it actually a really good thing in this modern, now that we know Giant Killer. So I'm really excited by what they've done here. I love these new abilities. I'm excited to think the game through again. But my whole point with this video is that if you're not already thinking it through, you should be. If you have a vision for this game and you want to be successful in the long run with Splinterlands, and you want to grow your account and you want to extract the maximum reward for your time and attention, the time is now to start preparing. And by prepare, I mean analyzing these abilities and these monsters and trying to, ascertain which ones are going to be really pivotal for owning. Clearly they are going to change the game in a dramatic way. This is a card I've seen in gameplay, and it just seems unhittable. And again, Magic is gonna smack it around, but in the right context, this speed with the blind, it's nasty. And but again, for me so far, and the core thing I want to present to you here, I think you're gonna want all of these new summoners. I think they're gonna be they're going to be significant and meta redefining, all of them. And I also think Magic is being renewed as the core consideration until we see more phase. There's not enough phase yet, and frankly, I don't know how many of the new monsters have phase at their lower levels. But I would say if there aren't at least one lower level phase monster for every deck, that's going to be one more indication that Magic is just very, very necessary, very pivotal, continuing to be as far as I'm concerned, the meta of this game. And so prepare accordingly. When you have opportunities to buy monsters that have phase, get it. When you have opportunities to buy monsters that have force field, get it. And take seriously counter monsters such as Silence and Void Shield, because they're going to help give you that sustaining ability to survive through. That's only part of it though, guys, because there's a lot more here, right? You guys know White's camping the archery, and green is the real Magic threat, right? That's the new summoner. So we're looking at fire, and we're saying Magic is the real concern, but we've got Obsidian with the +1 Magic, and what's that going to do for us? The Regal Periton at the highest levels, I think, has 3, and give it 4 with your summoner buff. This one, I think it's 2, so go up to 3. Plus, you're going to be able to incorporate a lot of the untamed cards. And then the untamed cards, you got Sorcerer, Kron. How's Kron going to look when he's hitting you with 5 magic, plus goes into Last Stand? You know what I mean? Like, Magic is obviously increasingly powerful now, because not only is there Obsidian +1 magic damage from the green team, there are legendary summoners to come out that are gonna almost certainly include Magic at some level, right? I expect there'll be a legendary summoner with magic. It could be the concerns or expectations around it being fire could still be true. That was what we previously thought. There was going to be a +1 magic to fire. There could be a +1 legendary magic fire. I think that would be so game breaking. So I feel like they won't. I'm predicting no. After I've seen these monsters, I think they just wouldn't do that. But everything in this game, even Deathblow. We didn't talk about Deathblow. Deathblow at the highest level is dropping 8 on your final monster. I mean, there's just so much damage dealing out there nowadays. Feels like magic and speed are the two key metas. And if you have a very fast team and you can delete your enemies before they can even go, then maybe you can do with smaller hit points. But otherwise, you need to have lots of sustainability, like void armor, like force field, and even phase to get around what is clearly a magic centered, and even white too. Tons of magic from the Untamed deck. I use it as a magic deck all the time. And then there's a bunch of new ones: Temporal Master, Dax Paragon, Adelaide Brightwing, which is a super cool art, by the way. Love that one. I love these new cards. I'm excited. In short, I do absolutely think that there has been significant power creep. But I also think that the developers were really intelligent in how they designed collection power. And that is going to always ascribe great utility to older monsters, even when new monster cards become must-have, become meta redefined. And so as the meta shifts, we don't need to be concerned that old cards are going to become useless. They might lose some utility in the game, but even then they're going to be functional in the right context. And I would just say the best news about all of this, these cards aren't even out yet. When they are out, you're going to have an opportunity to get them at relatively low prices, even if they are in some cases quite what you might feel is quite expensive. These things, because of the nature of these cards, they are deflationary, and they will be worth more in 4 years than they are in 4 days. And so, as far as I'm concerned, identify now which cards you feel are going to be absolutely pivotal, and I feel I've outlined a few for you here today. And I've also outlined broadly the idea that speed and evasiveness around magic in particular are going to be really pivotal. So divining your magic attack on every splinter, getting these new summoners, and then trying to prepare defenses around either phase, void armor, or force field are going to be absolutely must-haves for the new meta. And that's not just going to be modern, it's going to be modern and wild because these cards are playable in both. I hope that's been helpful, guys, and if it was, make sure you leave a like and make sure you subscribe. As always, thank you for your time and attention. Have an amazing day. God bless.